How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of The Creative Process. As you know, my name is Jaden, and right next to me we have Adelaide. How are we doing today?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
That's good. And I'm going well, thank you. I just want to first of all say a huge thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. We just did a photo shoot together, so thank you so much for taking the time to do that. And also taking the time to come onto the channel and talk about what you do. I've been quite excited about this interview. We've had it planned for a long time, but then obviously, yeah, I know, unfortunately. And I'm so glad that we're, I always like to say when I've had things booked for a long time and then we've kept rescheduling and then we're doing it now, it's like, at least we're doing it right now. So it's finally happening. So that's the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I guess for everyone watching at home, tell us, what do you do with yourself when it comes to the creative arts? Like, what do you do with yourself?
What do I do? Well, I am a burlesque artist. I have been doing burlesque for the last 12, 13 years or so, maybe more. I come from a theatre background, so I left high school and I went straight to Victorian College of the Arts and I did a degree in musical theatre. From there, I went on to study journalism and fine drawing at Monash. And then I got into interior design. So I'm now currently an interior designer as well as a burlesque artist. So there's all creative, all combined. Everything is all about creativity.
Yeah, quite a mixture of things as well. Like you've kind of got a bit of a background in all these different areas. So you kind of got all your hands in all these different baskets.
Fingers in every pie.
And you said so 12 years as a burlesque performer.
Yeah, so gosh, when did I start? It's 2022 and I started teaching at Bottoms Up Burlesque and Pole Dancing School in, I think, 2011.
Wow.
And so and then I parted ways with Bottoms Up after several years. I love teaching and I'd love to get back into it, but to grow more as a performer.
Yeah.
And then I guess in the late 2010s, mid 2015 kind of era, we had the burlesque revival in Melbourne. So lots of gigs, lots of things happening. So involved in a lot of that. Took a little bit of time off. I mean, COVID hasn't helped. But doing a diploma in interior design, took a little bit of time off performing to focus on that, and I'm also renovating my own house.
And that does take time.
And that does take time as well. So yes, back into it now, and it kind of feels like I'm starting again. So even though I've been doing this for a very long time, it does feel like I'm a newcomer again. I don't know the other artists as well as I used to know everybody else. I don't know the producers anymore. My name isn't as well known as it used to be. So it's just like, baby steps, starting again, getting back in, getting heard and seen around the scene again. Yeah.
And it is like that. I mean, even for me, when I took a year off doing photography myself, it was kind of like, you feel like even though you've been doing it for a while, you feel like once you get back into it after a little bit, you're a bit of a newbie because you're just kind of like, you've just taken that time to just, figure out what you would like to do, if you want to keep pursuing this, if you want to do something different, but then you go back into it and you're like, oh gosh, I am a newbie again. So it's kind of like you feel like you're reinventing and rebirthing your creative juices.
And I think just like in scenes that are quite niche like burlesque, is that you need to be around regularly and you need to be present, so even online presence. I struggle with because I am in my mid-30s, and when I started burlesque, we were all like, no, put your phones down, don't film my routine. And now I'm like, oh, can somebody film me so I've got content for Instagram? Just a little boomerang, that's fine. I don't know what TikTok is, but hey.
It's like, can you please film this for me? I'm like, everyone's running around going, please film this for me. It's like, I need the content.
Yeah, it feels very different. And also because I've been performing for so long, it's kind of hard to get friends and family to come and see me at small gigs because they're like, we've seen you a million times already. We'll see you again another time. So I'm like, please.
It's like, can you please just come? I know that it's the same one, but please. I just want to Oh gosh, that's great. Like, I know that you said that you started with a theatre background and then you moved on to pole and burlesque. So why did you make that? What made you decide to make that transition into one to another?
So I did musical theatre at the Victorian College of the Arts, and that was really lovely. After coming from an all-girls Christian school, I was involved in drama. I was the drama captain, and it was really great. But all of the roles that I was getting at high school, because it was an all-girls school, I played all the men's roles in music theatre. Then I moved on to do music theatre as a VCA person, and it was so much better. I felt like I found my tribe, but it was still a little bit too safe.
Okay.
And so like music theatre, I love it, it's my background, but I find that watching music theatre, it is quite formulaic, it is very safe, it's very family friendly. During my degree at VCA, we had a little short unit called cabaret. And so we each had to we had to research cabaret, we had to watch a whole lot of cabarets, and we had to put on our own 20-minute solo cabaret show.
Wow.
And we performed it at the Butterfly Club. Which is where I met my husband. So I've been with him for 14 years. We met at the Butterfly Club.
Wow.
He runs it. And then through meeting him and spending a lot of time at the Butterfly Club, I saw a lot of cabaret, I saw a lot of fringe, I saw a lot of very unique, dark fringe, naughty, irreverent sideshow, and that's where I was like, this is the kind of performance I like. I like performance art. I like this gritty, like not necessarily family friendly.
Yeah.
And then during my time there, a friend of mine was like, you know how they do pole dancing classes for fitness? Apparently you can do burlesque classes. We should do that. So I signed up for a burlesque class because I already had a dance and performance background.
Yeah.
I was like, this is great. And then one of the teachers was like, do you want to teach here? So I started teaching burlesque and then got into performing burlesque. So it was that kind of transition. It's like, it sort of feels like they are kind of intertwined and they inform one another, and you absolutely, the craft that comes out of music theatre, because you're learning singing, you're learning dancing, you're learning acting and storytelling, and that is essential to put on a really good burlesque. It's just that burlesque is so much naughtier. And involves a lot more nudity, which I quite enjoy.
Amazing. And it's really funny that, like, in a way, you kind of discovered it just came across it where, as you said, you were asked to do a cabaret show, and you just came across it and you're like, this is actually interesting. And then, as you said, you met your future husband there, which is pretty, so it's interesting when some of these things just happen and you stumble onto them and you're just like, I can do this. And I feel like this is actually where I'm meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of life's journey as well. Like, you just embrace whatever comes along, and
exactly.
You have a good time along the way. And I've got all of my best friends are from the burlesque world. It's like, I thought I found my tribe in music theatre as a 19-year-old. And then when I discovered burlesque and I started hanging out with like the literal freaks of the world at that time, like we're all tattooed and pierced, and one of my best friends does like hammers a nail on his nose, and all of like sideshow stuff, and I was like, oh, these are the people that I love. These are my people.
These people are the ones
These are the ones that I want to spend time.
Amazing. And it is about the journey. Like I always say to people, it's about the journey, not the destination at the end of the day. And I love that. And it's, I guess, talking about with the burlesque scene and all that sort of thing, as, it's known as the art form of the art of tease when it comes to burlesque. When it comes to, I guess, the nudity aspect of burlesque, I like to ask performers, was this something that you had to learn to be comfortable with, or was it something you've always been comfortable with?
I've always been pretty comfortable with nudity. It's never really been an issue. My mum's a nurse, so it's just kind of like bodies are bodies.
Yeah.
They do what they do. Everybody's beautiful. I guess for me, when I started out with burlesque, because I taught a lot of burlesque history when I was teaching burlesque at Bottoms Up, and for me, like, the art of the tease is actually an American faction of burlesque, and so the word burlesque actually comes from the Italian word burla, which is like to poke fun of and to laugh at.
Actually, I didn't know that. Yeah.
So there is kind of like a divergence in history where traditional burlesque was actually like way back into like Greek and Roman entertainment, where they would have like their performances on the streets in Greece or in Rome, making fun of the politicians of the day, and they had like enormous casts of penises and like giant boobs. And so to me, that was like the original burlesque, and it doesn't necessarily have to involve nudity, but it should involve some kind of like divergence or fun or poking fun at, or like some kind of political element or storytelling. And so nowadays, like, we don't necessarily have to get into the politics of it all, but I do love an act that is all about storytelling and about character. And if that doesn't, I used to do a burlesque act that it was a reverse strip. So I'd like come out of the shower in a towel, and then I'd end up like putting on like Ugg boots and a dressing gown. I had like my hair in a towel and like putting a scarf on because it was cold. And so it was like putting clothes back on. It's not necessarily saying much, but it's saying a little bit more than here's a pretty costume that I'm just removing. And I'm moving beautifully. And that definitely has its place, which is the art of the tease.
Yes.
And so that's that American striptease, which kind of happened in like Prohibition era, 1920s, when they had the tabloids, they couldn't have live nudity. And then, it sort of like, it developed from there. So there's two different streams, and I'm definitely from the more European stream.
Amazing.
And if nudity happens, it happens. It's not necessarily an end goal, but if it's in there, all the better. You're welcome, everyone.
Oh gosh, I love that. And I do love, for me as well, as I love art with the story as well. So, like I think, we're talking about some of your performance off camera, and it really, I love the storytelling aspect of the way that you described your performance, which we can talk about that in a sec. And I do always, and for me, I'm a sucker for like, if I ever see any art, no matter what it is, if it's performance, if it's photograph, paintings and all that, I love the storytelling aspect. As soon as I see like a story in this, I'm completely hooked on it. So I completely understand that. And I always love to say the one thing, as you were saying about burlesque, is like it can be so versatile in what you do. And there's actually, as you said, you had a friend who sticks a nail in his nose. Oh, I'm just like, oh, ouchies. But it's like that. But there's just so many different aspects that people can do. And at the end of the day, I think that's the beauty of burlesque. That there's no limit.
Exactly. Like it's such a beautiful art form where you can create a work of art that takes 5 minutes to perform in front of other people, and you can say literally whatever you want. There is no boundaries. We don't have scripts. We are non-verbal performers, so we're using our body to create these characters and create these storylines. And you can have voiceovers in your music, but there's no rules. And that's like, it is a naughty underground kind of art form, and so there shouldn't really be rules.
Absolutely. It's amazing art form. And so I'm talking about your performances and all that sort of thing. So what is, I guess, for people who are watching, what is, I guess, the performance or performances that you're quite known for when it comes to burlesque? I'm
best known for my Star Wars routine, where I do a quick change between multiple characters, beloved characters. There is actually no story. So speaking of a person who loves story and character,
this one doesn't have a story.
There is no story. This is just pure silliness and joy, and I created it over a decade ago. I've been doing this routine for a very, very long time. It has had different iterations where I've gotten the costume up to scratch, like just added little bits and pieces. Originally, the robot part wasn't in it, so the robot part is a bit newer. But I created it right at the beginning because I just fucking love Star Wars.
Well, who doesn't? Who doesn't?
And it was for me because back then there was loads of gigs that you go to. There might be like 4 people in the audience, or it might be a group of people that are just really bored and they're out drinking and they're more focused on their drink and their dinner than on the performance that's happening on stage. And so I wanted to do something that was for me to take pleasure in. I was getting booked for these gigs, whether the audience liked it or not, shouldn't matter because I was having a great time. But that has actually, this is my most booked routine because it brings the house down every time I do it.
Nice.
Because people are seeing me having so much fun on stage that is like this feedback loop from the audience, is that I'm having a great time, even if there's one person there, if there's two people there and they'd rather have a conversation with each other, I can still have fun doing this routine. But that also brings people in, because I'm just so joyous in like having these characters that are my favorite characters that I get to be on stage in the silliest way possible. And people really love it. So there is no story. There's a lot of character. But there's no real storyline. It just happens. It escalates. The energy gets higher and higher, and people just have a really, really great time. And I have a great time doing it.
You know, I was talking to someone about this a couple of days ago, about how sometimes creating art for yourself can actually grab people's attention. And it seems like with you, that's what's happened. And because they're like looking at your performance going, oh my gosh, this person looks like they're enjoying themselves. And then they end up enjoying themselves because you're enjoying themselves. And yeah, sometimes it just can happen like that, because you're creating art that you want to see yourself, and then people are coming along for the ride. And it seems like that for that act, that was what happened.
And it does work, but it is a fine line to creating art just for yourself, in it being not accessible to others, and becoming self-indulgent as well. And so I think that there is just that fine line to tread between joy for the art form, and you're bringing joy to it, and doing something for yourself so that you enjoy continuing to create and develop. And then there is self-indulgence, where you're creating something purely for yourself, that is just not accessible to others because it's maybe too niche. Maybe the story doesn't come across. And so being really open. So I think that it's a hard thing to even articulate about how to walk that line. And how to find that balance. And I think really it's about continuing to learn, continuing to develop, and always having outside eyes and being open to feedback. So create something for yourself and start with an idea that is like that core of that idea, and then start to flesh it out, and then get other people involved, trusted people. My husband is the best person to work with when I'm coming up with a new concept, because he doesn't like burlesque.
Oh, really?
He finds it really boring. He doesn't enjoy it as an art form. And so when I'm putting together something new, I'll get him to come in and watch it and like give me feedback, because he's very critical. Because he's like, if I want to actually see this routine, it has to be good.
To someone who doesn't like it.
To someone who doesn't like it. It has to be appealing in some kind of way. And I think like I love having other people collaborate and be involved, and I always feel like I'm learning. I want to go to classes. I've done circus classes, I've done pole dancing, I've done a lot of acting, and I think that there's always more to learn. And like when I win the lottery, all I'm going to do is spend my time going to dance classes and learning different techniques. Like I want to learn 90s hip hop. I want to I want to add those things to my routines to like make it appealing in many, many different ways. So you start with that kernel of joy for yourself. And then you involve other people to like flesh out that idea and polish it as well.
Absolutely, and as you said, we should always be learning no matter what, and I think that's a great process to go by. And I'll quickly ask you about this, the name that your persona, how'd you come up with the name?
So Adelaide Everheart is my stage name, and I don't often, it's very common in the burlesque world to only go by your stage name. It's a privacy thing. We do take our clothes off, and we have online presences, so we don't necessarily want our day jobs to know about our stripping. But because I come from an acting background, your character is the thing that you play on stage. I'm not a method actor. Method acting can be dangerous. It can work really well to get yourself into the shoes of that person that you're playing, but I think that it can actually border on self-indulgence. So as an actor, my character was always who I was playing on stage or on film. And so when I was backstage or when I was off stage, I'm not that character anymore. And so basically I chose a name that was similar to my real name, because it was common for people to call people by their burlesque names. So Adelaide is essentially my name. So if somebody calls out Adelaide, I'll just be like, oh yes, that's me. That's my name. So I also am a journalism background, and so I love alliteration, and Adelaide Everheart sounded cool.
It is a really cool
I like
name.
the way it rolls off the mouth. It's
Adelaide
a bit.
Everheart.
It's a bit classic. Like it's a classic style name.
Yeah.
And I don't really do that much classic burlesque, but it's been my stage name for over a decade, and I think it'd be a bit silly to change it now.
No, and I think it's a great name to go by. I think it's a really awesome name, and I do love that history behind it of going like, you know, going with something that's a bit similar to your name, because I've had people say that, you know, because sometimes when I've heard when performers change their names, sometimes when someone says their performer name, they don't answer.
Yeah.
And so some people have just gone, I'm going to just choose something very similar, so that no matter what, I can still turn around and go, yep, you know, and so you can just turn around and go, yep, that's me.
Yeah.
You know, and
Exactly.
I think it's actually a good way to go with.
Yeah, and I think also like in 2011, 2012, when I was like doing a lot more burlesque, everybody was like either a French or German name, you know, like Lala La Rouge or, you know, Virtue Van blah, blah, blah. Like Nita Von Teese has like this, the names were all very similar, and I was like, well, I don't have a drop of French in me.
Yeah.
I don't have a drop of German in me. I am very British though. I have a very Scottish heritage, so this seems appropriate.
Amazing. I love that. I think it's gone with an amazing name, and I've
Thanks.
really loved hearing about your process of creating and just about your performances. So thank you for that. And I want to say once again a huge thank you for taking the time out of the schedule to do
My pleasure.
this.
It's been a delight.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that, and I look forward to seeing you perform and collaborating again in the future. I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too. Can't wait.
Same here. And so everyone watching at home, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of The Creative Process. If you want to check out Adelaide's amazing work, I'll leave links to everything down below. If she's performing in your area, go and see her live, go and see the amazing recreation of Star Wars. It's absolutely incredible. Don't miss it. As I always say in every episode, let's keep supporting our amazing community. Go to performances, purchase merchandise, hire photographers, pay for commissions. Let's keep supporting each other's dreams. Let's support each other's goals, and let's help each other through these hard times. And comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next episode.